Welcome to Dr. Grimmy's Old Time Medicine Show and Conversation Extravaganza. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, and any others. If you have something that ails you, a problem, a challenge, a struggle, we have the cure. Are you bored, disdainful, thoughtful, maudlin, frustrated, or constipated? We have the cure that you have been waiting for. Myself, world-famous Dr. Grimmy, and my faithful and erstwhile assistant, Jake the Snake Garn, Cosmic Serpent, master of hidden wisdom, and owner of copious amounts of inner light. We will teach you, you will learn, and you will be happy. And so, my fine ladies and gentlemen, and others, please step right up. All you have to do is listen. We will sell you the right snake oil. It will cure what ails you, and if nothing ails you, it'll cure that too. We will teach you the secrets of the ages and the esotericness of esoteric. So enter with us now into the inner circle of sacred wisdom. Here you will find what you're looking for. Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the last hour of the show. We're going to be talking about, we're going to step back a little bit from Dorothy and talk about some of the things that were released and brought to light in these FBI files that have been hidden, if you will, or not released as a result of the two major investigations by the Warren Commission and the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which was investigating not only the JFK assassination, but the Martin Luther King and the Robert Kennedy assassination, to try to put to rest the idea that there was a conspiracy in the first place. J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI, who had a penchant for wearing women's clothing. Not that that's a bad thing, but it does make you question his professionalism. I'm not sure. I suppose that other than what he does in the privacy of his own world, that's okay, because he was a rather effective director of the Bureau of Investigation for the government of the United States. He also, in good keeper of information, kept lots of information on lots and lots of people. If anyone who was aware of his proclivities for dressing in a different gender attire, he had the goods. He used the FBI to collect all kinds of information on thousands of different individuals that was damning or embarrassing, and he was not want to advise them of that fact. Upon Hoover's death, his very loyal secretary stated that she shredded all of that information. Let's hope so, because if anyone finds a garbage can with that stuff in it, it will be a very fascinating news cycle. Right now, we can just make stuff up because who knows what's in there. However, the stuff that was released does paint a picture that J. Edgar Hoover believed, along with the Attorney General, that the conspiracy theory wave that Dorothy Killgallen, in her early columns on that subject, had sort of initiated, that there was something rotten in Denmark, as Richard Belster has said in his book. That J. Edgar Hoover did not want, they wanted to find something that would paint Oswald as the lone assassin. They did not want there to be any residue or continued investigation of the participation of the FBI or the CIA in what had happened with JFK. And whereas we have not received, as it were, the smoking gun, some fascinating information about the operations of the Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI in this time period have come to light. And so let's look at some of those and see what the deal is. If we can
if we can come up with some stuff. This is the Philadelphia Inquirer put together this list when their people went through the released files, the 2,800 pages that was released, that they felt were the most obvious and most interesting. I don't know. I suspect when people get digging and start connecting dots with other documents that are out there. Remember, I mentioned there were 2,000 books with all kinds of documents that have been released, and I'm sure erstwhile investigators will begin to connect names, dates, and places and fill in some blanks that currently exist. One is that an FBI informant claimed that the Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit was the actual assassin. Now, that's something that has come up before, but there hasn't been any real overt connection with Tippit and the guys in the assassination, Oswald and others. However, one of the pieces of information that Dorothy Killgallen had come up with was that her informant had seen J.D. Tippit, Lee Harvey Oswald, and another individual who she stated she called Ferret Man because she did not know his name. Speculation is that it was a rich Texas oil man, and there are documents in the FBI investigation and dealings that there was a rich oil man involved in some way with Lee Harvey Oswald. And one of the arguments is that it was a R.L. Hunt. We shall see if that bears any fruit. Certainly there was lots of anti-Castro activity going on, and it's not outside of the realm of possibility for rich billionaires or billionaires to offer money and help to the government to achieve their ends. We're all very familiar with Howard Hughes and some of the work that he did on behalf of the Central Intelligence Agency. And that's a whole show about raising a Soviet submarine from the floor of the ocean for some very interesting reasons. But he funded a good chunk of that on behalf of the government, and it was able to be classified for a very long time. Some of that information we'll have a show about that because that is a fascinating story about the whys and hows of that whole clandestine operation to retrieve this Russian submarine from the floor of the ocean. So it's not out of the possibility that a very wealthy individual could have been recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency to support operations. And in those days, prior to the Church Commission, the intelligence agency did operate on U.S. soil. So that wasn't illegal at those days. Tippit was the officer that met with Oswald, according to the Warren Commission, and Oswald shot him. We talked on our last JFK show about J.D. Tippit and some of the questions regarding that event and whether or not it was Oswald who actually did the killing. Hard to say. We know that we talked about that Hoover said the public must believe that Oswald had acted alone. He needed to put to bed this idea of conspiracy so that they could just put it to bed, so that people overturning rocks wouldn't find any bugs that they might want to squash. We also discovered that Oswald spoke to a KGB agent in the department responsible for assassinations. Well, that might be a stretch, but one thing we do know is that there has always been the question of what was Lee Harvey Oswald doing in Mexico City at a particular date and time. Who was he meeting? Why was he there? What was he trying to do? And these documents that have been released from the Central Intelligence Agency primarily show what happened. Lee Harvey Oswald went to Mexico City, attempted to get a visa for Cuba and was denied, went to the Russian embassy, to the consulate, and attempted as well to get a visa. Now remember this, Lee Harvey Oswald had left the United States and had gone to Russia and had met his wife there, lived there for a few years, got married, and came back to the United States. There's some arguments that the reason he was able to do so was his involvement with the U.S. intelligence agency. The Russians certainly believed that Oswald was an intelligence operative on behalf of the United States, but that wasn't an uncommon event. Anytime somebody defected, it was always, you're still working for the who you're working for. Lots of examples of that. They went to great lengths to not be fooled by that sort of thing. He apparently met with a Valery Kostikov, a KGB agent, the FBI said, worked for the agency's 13 department, which was responsible for sabotage and assassinations. Don't know if that's the case, but it does pose some interesting thoughts. It could be that Mr. Kostikov was just the guy who happened to be on duty when Oswald show up. So you hand the phone to the intel guy and let him deal with it. The Soviets believed that Lyndon B. Johnson was behind the assassination. Well, that makes sense. Who was the most to benefit? When you try to solve a murder, you ask yourself, who benefits the most? And that gives you a direction to at least look. And it would appear that Lyndon Baines Johnson certainly benefited from the death of John F. Kennedy in that he became the president. I'm not sure if I buy that. I suppose that's a possibility. People have killed others for lesser reasons, but in this case, I don't think that simple greed would have motivated a couple of agencies to cover up what was going on. That perhaps he wasn't the cleanest light bulb, but Lyndon Baines, as a politician, I don't think he could have gotten both of those agencies to go along with such an operation, at least not enough of them to make it work. I mean, this is the U.S. government. We are granting them a great deal of competency that they do not necessarily demonstrate in other areas. The Soviets stated they believed there was some well-organized conspiracy on the part of the ultra-right in the United States to effect a coup, and that Kennedy's assassination had been planned by an organized group rather than being the act of a lone assassin. Now, that was the finding from the House Select Committee on Assassinations, is that it was a conspiracy, but they could not discern the details. I don't have the exact quote for that. I apologize. There was a second source, so it's a second verified source is considered gold in the intelligence community. The KGB was in possession of information purporting to indicate President Johnson was responsible. And Johnson was an unknown. The Soviets claimed to view Oswald as a nut job. Remember, they had several years of experience and observation of him. He visited Russia and was denied a longer stay because he was mentally unstable. A lot of that has not been discussed, that he did have some very strange behaviors. His behavior in the Marines, witnesses have said, was kind of off the map. And his wife, Marina Oswald, also stated that he wasn't the most competent person in the world. And we'll continue with the best and brightest information that has come out of this recent release of JFK documents, at least according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. And we'll look at some other sources as well. Come back. Live Radio, 801-254-1640.
The colors of K-Talk Media are like the colors of the leaves in fall, a beautiful sight to behold and enjoy. K-Talk Media, live, local, two-way talk.
K-Talk Media is giving away free stuff. Listen up for your chance to win. It's simple. Just listen throughout the week for the phrase of the week. Then listen to Shooting You Straight with Maxon and Platts from 4 to 6 p.m. Then when he asks for the phrase of the week, call in and win at 801-254-1640. This week's phrase is listen to K-Talk Media online by visiting ktalkmedia.com. Everyone builds SUVs, but when you're ready to step up to the ultimate off-road machines available, there's only one place to go. Plan B Supply in Ogden builds customized Humvees and military trucks ready for anything you can throw at them. Not only do they look mean and have the ultimate upgrades available, but they're built with a purpose, for people with a purpose. Everyone's SUVs are decent when the roads are slick, but Plan B's SUVs are for when you want to make your own road through tough terrain, in a tornado, wearing a tuxedo, with a grizzly bear riding shotgun, holding a shotgun, and waving an American flag. Visit our facility at 194 West 33rd Street in Ogden, Utah, or visit our website at planbsupply.com. You can call Plan B Supply at 801-675-4321. That's 801-675-4321. Make Doomsday sweet and make your friends' jaws drop. Drive a real SUV from Plan B Supply.
Hi, this is Matt with M&T Christmas Trees, 9000 South State Street, Sandy, Utah. We've got every kind of tree you could imagine. Fresh, real trees. This isn't fake. There's nothing fake about us. We have the real thing. We have Fraser fir, noble fir, grand fir, pinyon pine. We have white fir. We have every kind of tree you can imagine, from 2 feet on up to 20 feet tall. The reindeer will be landing November 22nd. They'll be here at 9000 South State Street all the way till Christmas Eve. So please come down before the reindeer fly away. And thank you for listening to real news and not fake news. Just like our trees, they're real, not fake. So come on down.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Hey, it does feel like we've kind of bounced into the Twilight Zone when we talk about some of this stuff. Most of the stuff I have talked about is citable either in Richard Belzer's book, Hit List, a investigation into the many unusual and suspicious deaths surrounding the JFK assassination. And you can also, I'm getting some of this information from the interwebs, particularly from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Of all the stuff that I looked at, they seem to have the best put together information about this sort of thing that would hopefully quench our curiosity. The one of the strange things that comes out is that apparently the British embassy, or British newspaper, my bad, got a tip that big news was coming shortly before the assassination. The intelligence service the newspaper received the call 25 minutes before he was killed. The MEI-5 individual noted that it seemed to be a sound and loyal. He'd never received a call of that kind before. The paper apparently doesn't have any record of that happening, but that doesn't mean that it didn't. However, the verification seems to come from the British intelligence service, and unfortunately, it's very difficult to believe whatever they tell you. It's just the reality that they are not in the business of telling the truth. And at least to those of us who are not in the know. I don't know, and this would be an interesting question, if you're the president or someone like him and the CIA is sitting down in front of you and they're giving you information, you have to ask yourself, am I getting the whole story here, or am I just getting what this particular agency wants me to know? If the Central Intelligence Agency is willing to infiltrate media or to subvert individuals within the media by payments and money and that sort of thing to get their message out or to keep messages they do not want out from getting that way, they certainly could have done something of that magnitude. One of the things that strikes me, one is that filling in of the gap of what Oswald was actually doing in Mexico, and Dorothy Killgallen's source, which is believed to be one of JFK's mistresses and one of Dorothy's better friends, that Lee Harvey Oswald and J.D. Tippit and a third man had met in Jack Ruby's club, the Carousel. You have to bear in mind that this club was a sit-down sort of organization, a place where the mob guys hung out. I don't know if Jack Ruby was an actual made person or a member of the mob or just a guy who owned a bar that they liked to hang out in. He was one of those, if you watch The Sopranos, you know that apparently the organization did use lots of people who were not sworn to the organization, though they weren't given the benefits of membership. Jack Ruby apparently was in that role and wanted to be more and continued to do things that would make himself bigger and accepted with the mob guys who used him for various purposes. So that is one of the interesting things that I think has come out of that, is that verification of Dorothy Killgallen's witness, who stated that she saw these three men meeting. And in these documents, we have a statement that the FBI also had a source that was saying the same thing. So it could be that the FBI guys, as competent as they are, were just putting Dorothy's information in bureaucratese and making it sound good, which is not entirely outside of the question, or that they actually did have an informant that verified Dorothy's witness statement to her. Who knows? I mean, some of this, it just kind of hangs in the air. And it brings up some other interesting questions. We currently, as Americans, and I don't like to talk political. It's not my thing. I like to talk interesting things, but not political. And I guess I don't have to, because it looks like we have a caller, and we're going to get to them and see what they have to say. Welcome, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, this is Eagle from down in Dixie, Utah.
How are you, Eagle?
Well, I'm just fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm having fun. This has been a blast.
I've heard that you guys have had some untimely warm weather up there.
It has been in the 60s. It is weird.
Well, enjoy it, because I don't think it's going to last long.
Well, okay.
Okay, let's get back to your subject, JFK. I would assume that you've watched the movie JFK.
I've watched parts of it. I haven't watched. I'm not a big fan of Oliver Stone for other reasons than his cinematography. So I was a little bit askance at watching his movie.
Huh. That's strange to me. I've been a not a real studious student, but I've been a close observer of what's been going on. There used to be a guy that would call in on the radio all the time, JFK Dave. Did you ever hear him?
I haven't heard from JFK Dave.
No, he's dead now.
Oh, okay. No, and the name escapes me, so no, I haven't heard him.
Well, I can't. His last name was, I'll think of it pretty soon. But anyway, I became acquainted with him, and he, according to him, the film was pretty accurate. Now, I understand that Trump is for some more information out on that. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. There have been 3 document releases over the last couple of years. This was the biggest and greatest of them, this October 26th release, and that there are still some there that may or may not be released. There's been some rumblings that the intelligence community has managed to convince him perhaps he shouldn't, but that's just rumblings. I don't know if that's, it's hard to say. Trump is the kind of guy who doesn't like to be told what to do. So if an intelligence person went into there and says, hey, you can't do this, that would put that stuff out there, in 24 hours. He'd tweet it all if he had to. So maybe they've learned how to work him a little bit.
But I also understand that the last stuff that was turned out has had a lot of redaction done in it too, see?
Right.
And so they give us a bunch of more baloney.
There are people who are probably still alive whose names who would be embarrassed or, if not criminally culpable, if their names came out, not just for operations for the assassination, but other things that perhaps they were involved in.
Well,
come out.
Hey, that's the price you have to pay when you're in a business of business. See.
Yep.
And I think if they don't give us anything and everything that is the absolute truth, not redacted to their liking, I think that we still need to wonder not just about the people that are doing the redacting, but about the president himself.
It is interesting. I would hope that the originals are not redacted, that somewhere in a file cabinet is the actual files that at some point the people will get to see. Now, who knows when that would happen, when we get to see all of it.
If I may ask, how old were you at the time that happened in 63?
I was a gleam in my father's eye.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm a young'un.
I can remember precisely. It was one of the most shocking things that's ever happened to me. But I didn't understand it until 30 or 40 years later. Or at least I didn't understand what I think is the real thing 45 years later.
There seems to have been an opposition to JFK from the, what would you call it, the far right in those days. Of course, now Richard Nixon is a rhino, so it's hard to say, but that there was a very strong opposition to Kennedy from this far right, loose organization. And there's lots of, at that big time, the golden goose was Cuba, and getting Cuba back, paying back, these darn communists. And lots of money was switching hands, and the mob was involved, and the CIA was using whoever they could, like they normally do, to get what they thought they needed to do. So they had no thought about using mobsters to.
Well, let me just say this, okay? I was a senior in high school when the Cuban thing happened.
Right.
And one of the strange things is the CIA was out recruiting those of us in high school to go down there to Cuba. And I had a very close friend who seriously considered it. I wouldn't that much in a political know in high school, but apparently this friend of mine was, and he had the chance and then thought better and did not go down.
Yeah, the sad part about it is they say, hey, we'll take care of you, we'll trust us. And then historically, though, you look back and you're like, you guys throw people under the bus all the time.
Yeah, if you come back alive, we might take care of you.
Yeah, if you manage not to get pushed out of the helicopter or something like that. They, just tell me, why do you think everybody was so shocked and saddened and remembers exactly where they were and that sort of thing over the death of JFK versus other assassinations? Do you think this happens all the time a president is assassinated, that people knew where they were when McKinley was shot?
Well, part of it was the modern method of communicating.
Right.
It was communicated instantly, and nobody that had any public interest at all they weren't able to screen them from it.
Right. Yep. So everybody found out pretty much the same time, pretty close.
Sure. Yeah, there you go.
So that they were able to have this combined emotional experience. Perhaps other than was he as well loved as that reaction indicated? Because we look back and say, we think of Camelot, we think of, what could have been looking back. But it was.
Well, one of the interesting things to me is to review, and I don't have a full set of it, but review the handshakes between Kennedy and a lot of these other shadowy characters. And I've got a friend that has them, and I'll talk with him, and if I can get him to cut loose with it, I'll send you a set down there to the radio station.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
Now, are you on every Saturday night?
I certainly try to be. Every Saturday night, 8 to 10, Dr. Grimmy's Old Time Medicine Show and Conversation Extravaganza. That's a mouthful.
I think you'll enjoy this stuff because you sound like a man who doesn't say, these are the facts and that's it.
Well, I try to educate as much as explore. Sometimes you can learn, facts are interesting, but exploring is also fun.
Yeah. Well, listen, I enjoy listening to you anyhow, and I'll keep it up.
Well, with an endorsement like that, my future is set. I appreciate that very much coming from you, Eagle.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, why was everybody so shocked and saddened and has this because he wasn't he was a popular president, but he had people who disagreed with him. And he had, he was told, don't go to Dallas. The political situation there is in upheaval. There's far too many individuals who are not happy with you in the Dallas area, and it's not safe for you to go there. That was the Secret Service's assessment. And he was a man of the people and believed that, I can't hide. I have to be out there. And that's what he tried to do. He rode in a convertible, a limousine that didn't have a roof so that the people could see him that he was a man of the people. He wasn't sitting in a iron boat limousine that you couldn't tell which vehicle he's in or anything like that nature that we have today. So that event did change how we look at the world, how we look at government. We don't look at government the same way. We're going to talk a little bit we're going to talk some more about that and why we don't see government the same way on the other side of the break. And if anybody else got any questions or maybe some inside knowledge, give us a call. Dr. Grimmy, 801-254-1640. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll be back.
With no credit and zero down, plus out-of-this-world Black Friday specials, Affordable Mattress Outlet has you covered at a price you can afford. Visit AffordableMattressUT.com or call 801-917-4555.
Hi, this is Dan MacArthur. I was a former mayor of St. George for about 20 years. I got into this timeshare with my kids. When we got into it, we found out we couldn't use it when we wanted to. Then we started getting these maintenance fees. The maintenance fees were just every year, and they started out kind of small, and they kept going up, and we didn't have any say about it. So I told them, hey, I don't want this anymore. You take it back. You can't do it. You've got it, and even if you give it to your kids, you die and it goes to them, they're going to owe it. So I was looking at ways to get rid of it, and as a result, we said we run into a group that says, dump my timeshare. A week or two later, I got a note back from, in fact, a very elated call from the company that I was working with, Dump Timeshare, and said, you're out of it. You're through. I said, hallelujah. My wife took her out to dinner and said, we're great. We're out of this. I want to endorse dumptimeshare.com. Great company. Helped me get out of a real mess that I was in for many years. Dumptimeshare.com.
Are you among the millions of Americans who feel uncertain when it comes to their health care? We are happy to inform you that there is a solution, and that solution is Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of like-minded people who work together to pay for their medical costs. You choose your doctor and hospital, starting at $107 a month for a single, up to $449 a month for a family. That's mom, dad, and all the kids. For more information, call 855-585-4237 or visit libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
Welcome back. Dr. Grimmy's Old Time Medicine Show. Try to sell you some snake oil. You don't know which I'm telling the truth or which I'm fibbing about. Actually, I like to entertain and to educate. I hope I do both. Just looking at some of the, looking under rocks for bugs to squish, we might find something really cool that we want to leave alone but know about. That's what we're doing here, is picking up rocks, turning them over, and looking for the interesting creatures that live there. The rock we've been turning over this week has been rocks in the JFK assassination. We talked about the untimely and suspicious death of Dorothy Killgallen. We've talked about some of the revelations that have come out of the document release that President Trump authorized. And that has led us to a discussion in our last segment here, a little bit political, perhaps more thoughtful, I think. But we don't seem as a people anymore to trust our government fully. I mean, we like it. The mail seems to show up on time, but by all accounts, that's a private organization, not actually the government. And the snowplows sometimes get there when they need to. So, that's, at least they show up within, a few hours of the snow. Though I don't understand why they have to make a big pile of snow. They push the snow down the street and you end up with a 2-foot mountain in front of your driveway that you have to deal with. So government, in spite of the good stuff, when you finally get out onto the street past the big pile of snow that they pushed up, then you can seem to drive down and deal with, if not the snow, then the other drivers. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I considered having a show on this, and I still might, how many failures that the FBI has had in just the last 20 years in preventing and solving criminal acts. I realize that they say, well, you won't see the good stuff. And I disagree, because they put out reports pretty consistently on what the good stuff is, because they want us, they've got to keep the guys in Congress, the Committee on Finance particularly, happy. So there are a lot of failures that the FBI as an organization has been through, and it doesn't seem that they learn or shift their operational the way they think, I guess would be the best way to put that. They don't seem to want to change the way they think. And it's the way they think, this idea of hubris, that if you believe you are as good as the gods will punish you. And hubris is a unmerited pride, and perhaps that is something that the Fabi guys have, is this hubris. I don't know if that's true at the level of the individual. I think that people join to be servants and to do an interesting and challenging and fascinating job to the best of their ability. But who knows when that shifts and the organization, the pressures of the organization are heavier than your inner desire to to uphold your oath. That's some powerful questions that as Americans we have to answer, because they are there for us as citizens. I hope they are. I hope they're not an instrument of darkness. And yet I look at some of the failures and I just shake my head, with a broken heart, because I believe that I believe in the best of us, and I want the best for us as a nation. We are, and I believe this to the core of my heart. I know I don't want to get political, but to heck with it. I believe we are the city shining on the hill, that in spite of all the warts and difficulties and challenges that we have struggled through and still struggle through today, such as the civil rights movement, the abuse of government power against citizens, a fair judiciary, all of those things we hope and believe can be the best and brightest in the world, and that other nations should look to us to see how to do business for the betterment of the individual and the nation. And yet, I see us fall short of that ideal all the time, and sometimes we deliberately turn our backs on that ideal because it doesn't suit our particular desire for vengeance or power or acceptance. It doesn't suit our narrative. And that breaks my heart, because we truly should be and are. The founding fathers, the individuals who put together the documents that we as a nation and as a people should live by, they put that together with the idea that that's how citizens should live. They had this unmerited optimism with a very keen understanding on the nature of humans, human nature, that we will do the darker rather than the lighter. We will make the more selfish choice rather than the less selfish choice, more than we do in ordinary circumstances. And so our organization of government is designed to limit the impact of that kind of selfish human nature that seems to drive most of us this day and age. And thank goodness that that's been the case, that they had this sense of human nature in such a way that they put together a template for a government that any nation could use and receive the blessings of liberty. And I'm not just talking about capitalism, because that certainly has some warts of its own, but the idea that all men are created equal. And I believe that applies to women as well, that we are, as people, created equal, and that the law should reflect that, which is revolutionary in and of its own, because those with money and power do not want to be treated as the unwashed masses. But in our country, justice, the iconic figure of justice, wears a blindfold. And I don't know if justice does wear a blindfold in this country right now. I mean, we see its failures, and we ask ourselves, what can we do? I don't know. all I can hope for is that if I'm an individual in a government agency doing my job day to day, whether it's cleaning, whether it's walking out into the darkness to kill someone who is our enemy, or if it's somebody who's offloading a container ship with food and medicine for a needy people, whatever the job is that a person has within the government, I hope that they wish to do that in the most effective and proper way, that they have a belief that they are instruments of service, that the ideals of our founding documents hold true even at 3 o'clock in the morning while you're mopping the floor of some office somewhere, that you are representatives of that shining city on the hill, and that if I'm an agent of the Bureau of Investigation or an intelligence officer, that I will look to my duties and I can say in good conscience, what you're doing is wrong, that I cannot do this in good conscience. I hope there are those who would be able to make those decisions, to say, overthrowing the government of Guatemala is not such a good idea. And perhaps we should do this. Is there a better way to accomplish our goals? How can we find in the good, the true, and the beautiful the methods to accomplish our ends? Because ultimately, we're trying to preserve this last bastion, as Ronald Reagan said, this last hope of men on earth, that if we fail, there's nowhere else to go. We will suffer 1,000 years of darkness. And I hope that those who serve us in these hidden services and in the military, and even the janitors and the cooks at the canteens in office buildings and government buildings, look to their jobs with the idea that I'm going to be the shining city on the hill, and I want to do the good, the true, and the beautiful for my country and myself, because that's the defeat of the evil that seems to be permeating our great land. The idea of this vicious selfishness, that I want more power and more say and more of whatever it is they're seeking, that can be thwarted by small good deeds done every day. The Jimmy Buffett song is, "It's my job." It's my job to mop this floor to the best of my ability. It's my job to get the best, most accurate information as a spy to my people and to protect my sources. It's my job as an FBI agent to tell the truth in all circumstances and in all ways, because that's the good, the true, and the beautiful. I challenge any government employees in the sound of my voice to recommit to that sort of life, that be a part of the shining city on a hill, that the ideal may not be the case today, but it's certainly worth working towards, that we can look at and have a philosophy of good. And we do not have to dip into the designs of evil to accomplish our ends. There was no valid reason to torture people. We're the good guys. We don't need to do that. We never had really done it in the past. Certainly not officially. And let's be the good guys. We're the good guys. Sometimes that means it's not very pretty. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it hurts. But we are the good guys, and that comes with a price. We need to be willing to pay the price of being the good guys. I believe I'm a good guy. When I was staring into the dark as an Air Force security police member, I believed I was the good guy, and that my actions, I honestly wanted to be those of a good man and a good person. And I wanted to uphold those ideals. In this discussion of the JFK assassination and the many questions and unanswered problems and the apparent conspiracy of lies and cover-up that even those who were limited by these acts of violence, the Select House Committee on Assassinations stated there was a conspiracy, we just can't put our fingers on it. We don't know the details. I hope that's because they really couldn't know the details, not because they had some ulterior motive in not finding out those details. Because truly looking for the truth, the true, is what is the good. And those two things together are the beautiful. And as Plato said, we must search for them because they're not easily found. I believe in my country. I believe in the Constitution of the United States. I believe in doing the right thing, even if it is painful. And I challenge anyone listening that the way to defeat some of these difficulties and challenges that we are facing from our government, from our peers, from many sources, from the media, from all kinds of individuals who are seeking power and selfishness for its own ends, that we, by doing those simple, good, and right things, can thwart their efforts. So, thank you for listening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you. Please come back next week and we'll talk some more.
Thank you.